Have you ever let someone into your life so completely that they felt more like family than your own blood relatives? That is exactly what happened between me and my roommate in the busy streets of London. For nearly 2 years, she was my confidant, my support system, and my daily companion through every high and low of young adult life. We shared everything from the first morning coffee to the last late night conversation about our biggest dreams and deepest fears. I truly believed I had found a sister in this stranger who moved into the flat with me. The everyday chaos of shared apartment living in the UK only pulled us closer together. But then, everything shattered in one rainy evening when the terrible truth finally came out. The pain cut so deep that I still question every happy memory we built together. This is the raw emotional story of how my roommate became family, only to destroy the trust we had worked so hard to create. Get ready, because this one will hit hard if you have ever lived with roommates or experienced the ups and downs of shared living. Whether you are a student in a hostel, a young professional in a city flat, or even an older adult sharing space to save money, you will feel every moment of this journey. Stay with me as I walk you through the entire story from the hopeful beginning all the way to the heartbreaking end. It all started on a cool September afternoon when I arrived in London dragging 2 heavy suitcases and carrying a heart full of nervous excitement. Fresh out of university, I had just landed my first proper marketing job, but the rent prices in the city quickly made it clear that living alone was impossible. After weeks of disappointing viewings and awkward conversations with sketchy landlords, I finally answered an ad for a roommate in a small 2-bedroom flat in Zone Brie. During our first video call, the woman who would become my roommate seemed warm and easygoing, with a smile that instantly calmed my worries about moving in with a stranger. On moving day, she met me at the door and helped carry every bag up the narrow staircase without a single complaint, even though she had her own busy schedule. The apartment felt surprisingly cozy, with large windows letting in soft natural light and a tiny kitchen that already smelled like fresh coffee. We sat down together at the small table and talked for hours about our families back home, our favorite shows, and the reasons that brought us both to this huge city. Her laughter was contagious, and her stories about previous flatmates made me feel like we were already on the same page. By the end of that first week, I realized I had not just found a place to sleep, but I had gained a real friend in this overwhelming new chapter of my life. The shared living experience that I had feared so much was turning out better than I ever dared to hope. Over the following months, our friendship grew stronger than I ever thought possible in a shared apartment. She was there for me on the terrible days when my boss piled on extra work and on the lonely evenings when I missed my family. We created little rituals that made the flat feel like home, such as cooking big Sunday dinners together, even when money was tight and the fridge was almost empty. During the long winter nights, we would wrap ourselves in blankets on the sofa and talk about our fears about the future, our past heartbreaks, and our hopes for better careers. When I went through a painful breakup, she stayed up with me until sunrise, bringing tissues and ice cream, and reminded me that I was not alone. I helped her prepare for stressful job interviews, and she gave me honest feedback on my presentation slides late into the night. We even celebrated small victories, like paying the rent on time or surviving another week of London commuting together. The daily struggles of shared living, such as arguing over whose turn it was to clean the bathroom or dealing with noisy neighbors, only made us laugh more in the end. Slowly but surely, she stopped feeling like just a roommate and started feeling like the sister I had always wished for. Life in that little flat became warm, supportive, and genuinely happy most of the time. One memory from last summer still stands out so clearly in my mind. We decided to escape the city heat for a weekend trip to Brighton, and the train ride was filled with non-stop laughter about our worst roommate horror stories from the past. On the beach, we sat with our feet in the sand and talked openly about our 5-year goals, our family pressures, and the things we were still scared to admit to anyone else. Back in the flat, our bond continued to deepen through ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. We supported each other through tight deadlines, health worries, and even helped with household chores without ever keeping score. The kitchen became our favorite place, where we experimented with new recipes, shared stories from our days, and turned small frustrations into inside jokes. Even when bills were due and stress was high, we found ways to lift each other up with silly dances or surprise cups of tea. Living together started to feel like the family I had chosen, rather than the one I was born into. Those months were filled with so much genuine warmth and laughter that I genuinely believed nothing could ever break what we had built. But slowly, small cracks began to appear in our perfect little world. She started coming home later than usual and seemed distracted and short-tempered whenever I asked how her day went. One evening, she sat me down in the living room and asked to borrow a large sum of money for what she described as a sudden family emergency, saying she would pay it back as soon as her next paycheck arrived. Because she felt like family, I transferred the money without hesitation, trusting her completely. Weeks went by, and every time I gently brought up the repayment, she changed the subject or gave vague excuses that left me feeling uneasy. Then, I noticed little things out of place in my room and discovered that someone had been looking through my laptop history while I was at work. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being paranoid about nothing. However, one afternoon, while she was out, I received a call from a mutual friend that made my stomach drop, and the first pieces of the awful truth began to surface in the most painful way possible. The betrayal hit me like a sudden storm on a clear day. She had lied about the family emergency and used every penny I lent her to take my recent ex on expensive dates behind my back. Even worse, she had been sharing all the private struggles and insecurities I had confided in her during our late-night talks so she could make herself look better in his eyes. When I confronted her that same evening in our living room, the guilty look on her face told me everything before she even spoke. She tried to make excuses and turn the blame around, but the damage was already done, and the trust we had built over 2 years lay completely shattered on the floor between us. All those nights we supported each other, all those secrets we shared, and all the times I called her family suddenly felt meaningless and fake. The argument that followed was loud, emotional, and filled with tears on both sides. By the next morning, she had packed some of her things and left the flat, leaving me alone in the same rooms that once felt warm and safe. The silence that remained was heavier than any noise we had ever made together. Looking back now, the experience taught me some hard but valuable lessons about setting boundaries, even when a roommate starts to feel like family. Shared living can create incredibly strong bonds that make life easier and more fun, but it can also lead to devastating heartbreaks when that trust is broken. Today, I am much more careful about how deeply I let people in, especially in shared apartments, hostels, or any kind of group living situation. If you are currently living with roommates or thinking about it, remember to protect your peace and keep some things private, no matter how close you become. Have you ever experienced a painful betrayal from someone you lived with, or turned a roommate into family only to regret it later? Drop your own stories in the comments below, because you are not alone in this journey. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. If it touched you, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another real shared living experience. See you in the next video.